Welcome to Crown, Melbourne. Now, we've had a fabulous day along the famous Yarra River, but when you think of the word high rollers, Aussie Millions cash game certainly comes to mind. Players from all around the world would love a spot on this table, but it's only open to an exclusive 8. There's a lot of dosh floating around this game. It's certainly high stakes, which explains why it's heating up.
And there is the table. Here we are, Aussie Millions Poker Championships high stakes cash game. There are the players and there is all that money. Now the difference is you're looking at a leaderboard and that is real cash. The red figures that you see, that means the players are in the red. If you see them in white, that means they're in the white. That means they're doing well and making money. And that's what this game is all about. The money you see at the table is real cash. Grant Levy, 2007 grand final winner of the APPT, sits with me. High stakes cash game, Grant. Tell me what you know.
Oh, it's exciting. It's always good to watch the high stakes cash game. There's a lot more table banter in a cash game than there is a tournament. There's a lot of money involved. And remember, this isn't just a $10,000 buy-in tournament. This is $250,000 buy-in just to enter. And the chip values are actual dollar values.
Well, Richard Yong with Queen 8 of spades. Ike Haxton with King 5. And look at this flop. A Jack 9-10 flop with 2 spades.
A little bit for everyone. Monster hand for Richard. He's flopped a straight. Got a flush draw to go with it. Patrick, top pair. Good kicker, open-ended draw. Isaac with a gut shot.
It checks to Patrick. He bets, it looked like 12,000. Round to Richard Yong. He makes the call. Over to Ike now. He lets it go. 2 players remain. The pot, $44,000. We go to the turn, and that is the king of spades. So Richard Yong, wow, what a hand.
Second nuts for Richard. He's got the hammerlock on the hand, but Patrick does have a straight, which is obviously no good. He's drawing dead with his straight.
25,000.
Patrick bets 25,000. Little does he know, Richard Yong has a big hand, and look at this.
25, is it?
Yep.
He picks up 2 plates, 25,000 each of those plates, makes it 50. Back over to Patrick.
Just a casual reach for a couple of plates.
I imagine it'd be quite hard for Patrick Antonius to let this go. But that is a scary minimum raise.
Well, there is 4 to a straight and 3 spades on board. Patrick's got to think, well, am I just going to call down for a chop here?
Yeah, everybody gets their own chip set.
Yeah, nice. Maybe if you hit like a certain amount of VP.
Most of the time, Patrick's going to be getting free rolled, and that's a good fold.
Wow, that is a very good fold. So Patrick Antonius showing some serious cash game experience there. And Richard Yong picks up a nice pot there. A pot of almost $120,000.
You're not flush.
Patrick doesn't seem to be too phased by it. Grant Levy, 2007 APPT Grand Final winner. Tell me, you know, I don't know what stakes you've played at the highest level, but to me it always makes me nervous watching this kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't played this high, Paul. There's some serious money on the table here. We're going to see a lot of 100K, 200K pots. These guys have got a lot of money to throw around.
Raised to 7,000. This is not a healthy life.
It's opened by Low here, raised by Newey with ace-4 of hearts. Here we see Low's hand is pocket 3s.
It's always like the worst when you wake up at like 10 p.m.
Yesterday close to 4 million US.
As you can see in a cash game, there's always a lot of banter, Paul. It's always a lot more relaxed than a high-stakes tournament. Maybe the fact that they can just reload if they lose all their chips.
Yesterday it comes 7.
And we'll have a look at the flop. 2 players to the flop. Little under 20K in the middle. Jack 8 deuce, all clubs.
And Low does have a club in his hand. It is only the 3 of clubs.
She's money.
He limp pre-flop. Newey the aggressor. I imagine he's going to continue, and he does.
He makes it 9,000. And Low just sort of taking a little bit of a glare at Newey there.
Newey does cover Low. Newey's bought in for 500,000. The rest of the players for 250,000 each.
Oh, he lose about 4 million. Plus 7 million US.
Why aren't I booking time and dice? This is amazing.
Problem with calling this bet is you could be faced with a pretty large bet on the turn.
After that, you can do it.
It does only have a 3 high flush draw.
After the tournament.
Well, Low thinking about it.
That's the stuff I live for.
He count out some chips there. And he changes his mind, so a nice pot for Newey there. We are well underway at the Aussie Millions Poker Championships high stakes cash game here at Crown Melbourne.
Things are definitely heating up in the poker room. So I thought I'd get away from the intensity and catch up with Olivia Bourrie, who's got a pretty impressive CV at the 5-star oasis that is Crown Spa. Crown Spa is undeniably Australia's finest and most exclusive day spa. With tranquil surrounds and relaxing decor, you certainly won't be leaving in any hurry. A team of spa therapists and beauty professionals are on standby to indulge you in your choice of treatment. Do you find it when you play poker, you probably need to get your nails done?
I'm a bit of a tomboy. I tend to forget about such things, but I thought we'd get it done here at the Crown Spa. It's pretty nice. So,
Yeah, well, you're in the right place.
Absolutely.
But you say you're a tomboy. What makes you a tomboy?
I guess I've always been typically attracted to male pursuits. You know, I grew up on a farm. I'd always just be out in the mud with the animals, the usual as a kid, and then I got into like heavy metal, and then got into physics and poker.
And what's it like being a woman in poker?
I love it. We stand out, we get more attention, we often get more opportunities, and also guys sometimes don't know how to play against girls, and that's fantastic.
So do you bring anyone on tour with you, or do you meet someone special here?
Romantic wise, no, I'm definitely single, and I'm happy as is.
You would be, you're 28 and you are doing very well. What goes on behind the scenes in poker? But is there any hookups, any parties, that sort of thing?
I mean, of course, there's the usual. I mean, poker players love to party, so yeah, there's some pretty wild parties, lots of shenanigans. There's always people to get into trouble with.
But now, astrophysics, that's a very impressive thing to do. How did that go?
The thing I love about physics is that it really helped my reasoning skills, my analysis, logic, and conveniently, those all are things that poker call on very much, and it's a science. A science with a sprinkling of art, as opposed to the other way around. Having a mathematical background is a huge bonus.
There you have it. She's smart, beautiful, and successful.
Thank you there to Sherry and Liv Bourrie, giving us a bit of an insight to the mind of a female poker player. And there you see the high stakes cash game leaderboard. Different to a tournament leaderboard. When you see the white figures, that means they've made money, and the red ones means they're losing money. So I'm not sure if you noticed in the last hand, but Phil Ivey sat down. Just happens to be one of the best players, if not the best player in the world. Bit of a scary guy to sit down at a cash table with at a $250,000 buy-in, Grant.
Yeah, well, he's no stranger to $250,000 buy-in tournaments and probably $1 million buy-in cash games. He's notorious for playing some of the highest stakes games in the world and doing very well for a long time now.
Well, Newey opens. He just won a hand off Low before. He's got pocket sevens. And it folds around to Low again. We see that he has the 6 of diamonds. And he has a 9 to go with it. And the flop, a 4-5-7 flop.
Well, that's an interesting flop. We've got a top set for Newey, open-ended draw for Low. The fact that he's got the 9, he actually makes a higher straight if the 8 does come, rather than just the middle pin straight.
Well, Newey didn't waste any time. He fired in with top set.
2 hours.
Well, Low's not going anywhere. You don't play 9-6 off pre-flop, get the 5-7 4-flop and fold, that's for sure.
That's the only fair way. I told them that's what they should do.
Well, this could be interesting to see how it pans out. Lots and lots of money could go in here. Remembering at home, this is real money. That was a real raise to $20,000. Back over to Newey, who's sitting there with top set. Turned around and looked at Low straight away.
Everybody can have a seat, you know.
Yeah, Paul definitely loves that raise.
it's 1 point.
He has top
They just
set.
make poker less predatory.
And he calls, so we will see a turn.
I mean, just in general.
The turn is a deuce of diamonds.
Well, that actually gives Low a double gut shot. Straight draw. A 3 is also now good. And will he continue with the aggression?
Right in the path.
We know that Newey certainly isn't going to go anywhere. Could see a big pot.
Well, this flop raise could mean that he's going to continue with his aggression here, or will he opt to back down?
Well, I'd be very surprised. It'd be a pretty ordinary line if he just decides to back down now. And he's reaching for the plaques. And it's going to be a decent sized bet.
They made a specific announcement.
About 34,000 by the look of it.
Yeah. I don't know if it applies.
34,000 is correct. Each of those plaques being 25,000. Now Newey with a set of sevens.
Remember, Newey covers Low. He sits there with almost 500,000 in chips.
I don't object.
And at some stage, Newey wants to get value from his hand. It's not easy to flop a set. He has top set here.
4-5-7. Any version of 4-5-7 that comes out there.
And it looks like a call. So Newey treading very carefully, waiting to peel the river. The river is a 4 of diamonds. That gives Newey a full house.
Now the fact Newey has just called the turn, we might see Low continue with the story here, continue with the aggression.
Will he fire again?
The 4 certainly shouldn't change anything.
Yeah, that's the point.
That's why you sleep on. You have to sleep on. That's a good thing.
The pot now, $126,000. It's one of those situations you've invested so much. Do you take another stab knowing that do you turn your hand into a bluff? I mean, that's what he's been doing, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not turning it into a bluff. It's
He's
already
been
a bluff.
bluffing, that's right.
But, I mean, the only way you can take down this pot and win the money back that he's invested, plus Newey's 60-odd thousand, is by betting this. I mean, we know that Newey won't fold, and he's actually going to raise the river, but I'd expect a bet of around 80,000.
Wow. 74,000 is the bet, and Newey watching every move now. You can see a bit of movement there. He's tapping his toe.
Well, there's 200,000 in the pot. As you can see, Low's got considerably less than that. I'd expect a shove here plenty of times from Newey.
It never hit 3 bucks.
Yeah, but okay, let's do come on, more. Not 10, not more than, we cannot, let's see how many I remember.
7.
He takes a little bit of a glare at how much he has.
And this,
Dream scenario, having top full house
5 now.
and getting a guy to bet, check raise you on the flop and bet 2 more streets into you.
I have 5. Let's do 5.
Just thinking how much value can I extract here. And I think he's going to go for all of it.
Oh, here it comes. Look at this, a very big raise. That's a lot of plaques.
Remember, each one of those plaques is worth 25,000. He's bet an even 200,000.
Almost $500,000 in the middle. And Low, who has 9 high, is thinking, why did I triple barrel bluff?
Obviously, he's just going the Hollywood here. He's seen this on TV, Paul. How do I save face? Yeah, I'll just tank for a couple of minutes, pretend I have some type of decision. We know that that decision is going to be a fold.
Well, I must say, he's making it look pretty good.
Well, Low actually has the nut low. There is no hand that he could possibly be holding that is worse than 9-6 here.
Well, you don't want to show any weakness to the other players, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's disguising a very difficult fold.
Well, I
and
apologise.
oh, look at that, he lets it go.
I apologise. He could have 9-3. That is worse.
So Newey there with a very big pot of $400,000 cash.
I thought he might have a 6. He could have had pocket 6s, or he may have been open-ended on a straight. So the 4 on the river was beautiful as long as he hadn't got pocket 4s. He bet 75,000 on the river. Pretty 99.9% sure I was head at that point. So obviously raised him to try and get some more chips, but unfortunately he folded.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that he only made 400,000 in that pot, Grant. But
yeah, big soul read there from Paul Newey saying, I'm 99% sure I'm ahead with the nut full house. The second best possible hand you can have.
Poker players are never happy. There's Ike Haxton. He raises it up with ace jack of clubs. Phil Ivey just fiddling around with $25,000 plucks.
And the murderer's row of cash game players there. Phil Ivey, Ike Haxton and Doug Polk. Notorious high stakes cash game players. Big winners. A lot of respect for Doug Polk. He's been playing a few years now. It's actually a lot harder to win in the big nosebleed online cash games now compared to about 3 or 4 years ago, and Doug certainly does that.
Well, Polk has called. We can only see the Queen of Hearts.
I think you find Doug has 3-bet here with the Queen and some type of napkin.
And it's back on Ike.
These guys would be no strangers to each other online. Actually, I've spoken to Doug during the main event this year. He's told me that he's played a little bit with Ike.
Well, we can now see that Polk has him dominated with ace Queen of Hearts. And look at this. Ike Haxton will let it go. So it's not like a tournament for the players at home that always want to learn from what they're seeing. Doug Polk raising with the best hand and Ike Haxton folding with the worst. And we'll be back with more high-stakes cash game at the Aussie Millions after the break. Welcome back to the Aussie Millions Poker Championships high-stakes cash game at Crown Melbourne. Here, take a look at the leaderboard. It's a different kind of leaderboard. It's basically a board that tells you who's making money and who's not. There you can see Paul Newey, he's made about 140,000. And Lo Xing Fung, he's down about $99,000. So a little bit of ground to make up for. This is real money, and this is the biggest stakes in the world.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to see some fireworks at some stage today, Paul. A lot of these guys, notorious gamblers, like to mix it up. And you find cash games, there's always a little bit of ego about too. Always trying to one-up your opponent.
Well, Max Altergott with ace-10 offsuit raises it up. Patrick Antonius, so much experience at high-stakes cash game. And he has aces. And it looks like he's 3-bet on the button, which is a nice place to disguise the aces, Grant.
Yeah, well, I mean, Patrick is an aggressive player. Everyone knows that.
And Max lets it go, and what a good fold that was. It could have cost him so much more. Patrick takes a pot of about 35,000 there.
He's a very dangerous opponent.
And unlike tournament poker, in cash game, you're always happy to win a little pot with aces.
Yeah, I'm always happy here. I bring my family here. I have my kids here, my wifey, and you know, I always come for a long time. I'm well rested. I really enjoy playing here. And I think that's the biggest key, that I enjoy playing so much. I play so well because of it.
Well, Patrick, a bit of an insight into Patrick's mind. Like I said a little bit earlier, Patrick Antonius is probably one of the more prominent cash game players in the world. He travels the world playing cash game. Grant, you've played with Patrick before. He's also had success in tournament. Would you say he's better at one than the other?
Oh, Paul, he's got probably more experience playing big live cash games and big online cash games. He's certainly been doing that for a long time and been very successful. But if you look at his tournament record, there's some massive tournament scores here, especially in Australia as well. So I think he's equally happy doing both.
Folds around to Ike. Made a pretty good fold earlier with ace-jack of clubs against Doug Polk's ace-queen of hearts. This time he raises it up with 8-10 of spades.
Nice little cash game hand too here. Suited connectors, suited one-gappers, hands like that. They can flop well. Disguised hands. You see a lot of big pots played with hands like this against big pairs and, you know, your ace-king type hands.
And he's been raised by Doug Polk again. This time Polk has queens. Nice setup here.
Absolutely. But it's a pretty little hand that Isaac's got.
Well, the pot's 36,000 and Low folds all the way around and back to Ike, and Ike folds. So a good fold again. Not getting too stubborn with his suited connectors there. Doug Polk taking a very nice pot.
And another 3-bet from Doug. I wonder how long it's going to be before Isaac plays back.
And we'll be back with more high-stakes cash game after the break. Welcome back to Crown Melbourne for the Aussie Millions in 2014. This is the high-stakes cash game. There is the leaderboard. Richard Young sits atop. He's up about 36 grand at the moment. Doug Polk off to a nice start. Phil Ivey up 12 grand. And all those figures you see in red, that's money they have to make up because they are playing with real cash. The action is on Doug Polk right now. He's been sort of involved a fair bit early on in this cash game.
Well, he's picked up some pretty big hands, Paul. His opponents don't know that, so I expect at some stage he's going to get played back at, which is just what he wants. He's establishing a looser image than a lot of the other players at the table.
Well, he raises it up with Jack-8 of clubs. A creative kind of hand. Here's Max Altergott. He makes the call in position. And it folds around, so there will be two players to this flop.
And two very experienced online guys. I'm sure they've played a few hands together in their careers.
Here comes the flop. An ace, queen, 8 flop with 2 clubs.
That's a monster flop for Doug.
Not much.
He has bottom pair. He also has a flush draw. He decides to check it over to Max. Max has king, queen. The king of clubs. He does have middle pair. He's also got a club for the backdoor draw.
And he has position, and it looks like he's about to use it to ask the question.
Well, we know Doug's not going anywhere.
The bet's 9,000. Pot's up to 28,000 now. Doug Polk, pair and a flush draw. And he smooth calls, not taking any risks in making the pot bigger. The turn is a 7 of spades, and he quickly checks.
Checks.
And Max checks back.
And the river a 4 of hearts, so the draw doesn't get there. He's got a pair of 8s, but Max Altergott with a pair of queens, so Polk checks.
It looks as though Polk might have given up here. It's just, is Max going to go for value here with the second pair? I don't think he has Doug on an ace. It's the king. If I do bet, how much is Doug going to pay?
I did. I was hoping you'd go.
Pot's got 37,000 in the middle. He's really thinking about a value bet here.
I'd say somewhere in the vicinity of 15 to 20,000 might get the job done.
And it looks like he is placing a value bet. And, well, if you're Doug Polk here, you get a piece of the board. What do you think? You think it's worth it? I mean, this is not tournament chips. This is real cash.
Well, Doug could have made this pot considerably bigger on the flop. The fact that he hasn't put many chips in the pot, I think he's going to find a fold here.
And he does fold. So Max Altergott, on his first trip down under, takes a very nice pot of over 55,000. And he has had some success here at the Aussie Millions. Here we take a look at the $25,000 tournament that was played earlier in the Aussie Millions. There was a buzz on the tournament floor of Crown Melbourne's poker room as the best players in the world paid $25,000 to enter the LK Boutique 25K Challenge. Names like Joe Hasham, our hometown hero and winner of the 2005 World Series of Poker, Daniel Negreanu, one of the most recognised poker players in the world, and the magician Antonio Esfandiari, the winner of the $1 million drop at the World Series of Poker. And they all got in there, but in the end, it was Jason Mercier coming in third from the United States. Dan Smith, also from the United States, came second, but it was a German in the end that won it. Max Altergott taking down first prize and $250,000. And we are back with more high-stakes cash games here at the Aussie Millions. $250,000 is all it would cost you to sit at this table. Grant, why aren't you there?
Oh, mate, it's just a little bit of money. I'd love to sit there, obviously, Paul, but, I'll just hang on to my house and things like that.
Oh, what a party pooper. I've been doing this a long time and I still can't get my head around the fact that they are playing with real cash, but they are. The pot is 7,000. There is Max Altergott. He took a nice pot a little bit earlier. This is really a profit-loss kind of game. He raises it up with King, Queen of clubs, and it looks like Low's coming along the ride with a interesting Jack 9 offsuit.
Yeah, Low, as we've already seen, isn't scared to mix it up a little bit. Lost a big pot earlier on with 9-6 off. Now he's going with the Jack-9. He does have 2 live cards, though.
Ike Haxton in for some action with Ace-6 of hearts.
3 runners.
A 3-way pot. It's about 30,000 in the middle. The flop. Ace, Jack, 2 diamonds.
6.
It's a little bit for Isaac there. Flops trips. Doesn't have a good kicker. Max flops a gut shot with the King-Queen. Obviously being the pre-flop aggressor, wouldn't surprise me to see Max continue here. His 2 opponents haven't shown much aggression. They haven't played back at him pre-flop.
He does bet.
17,000.
Looks like 17,000. Over to Ike now. Flop trips. He looks both sides of him. And he calls. Round to Low, who's also got a piece of this. Well, his facial expression will tell you what he's thinking.
Yeah, as you can see in the graphic, he's not in good shape. That's for sure. There's a small piece of it, just with the Jack. It's already a bet. And there's a call in front of him, and it's a very loose call from Low.
It is. This could cost him money, this call. Turn 7 of diamonds now. Well, that could slow everybody down, couldn't it?
Yeah, well, it could. I mean, the 2 diamonds on the flop. There's 2 callers after the initial flop bet and a diamond on the turn. It might slow down Max Altergott a bit, considering he only has king high with a gut shot. Isaac trying to lay the trap. Max doesn't fall into it.
No, checks all the way around. And the river is a 3 of spades. So Ike Haxton with trips. Can he get any value for this? 81,000 in the middle.
Well, Isaac's checked. I'd imagine it's just going to go check, check. The fact that there was 2 callers on the flop is really going to be a deterrent to Max to actually bet here.
Checks.
That looks like a check, and Max will check as well, and he gives it up with king high. And Ike Haxton will take down a pot of around $81,000. That will look very nice on the balance sheet. And we will be back with more high-stakes cash game at the Aussie Millions after the break. Welcome back to the Aussie Millions at Crown Melbourne for high-stakes cash game. The buy-in for this is $250,000, and there is the balance sheet. You can see right there down the bottom, Lo Xing Fung. He is $148,000 in the red at the moment, so he's got a lot of ground to make up. A lot of these players are making money off him at the moment. He needs to make something happen or turn that around. This is not a tournament, it is cash game. Folds around, there's Richard Yong from Malaysia, Phil Ivey. No stranger to cash game. Ike Haxton, been very active.
Just the opposite of Phil Ivey. Phil hasn't played a hand yet, but I'm sure he's going to spring to life before too long.
Ike raises it up with ace-9 of clubs.
And here's our action man, Mr. Fung.
Well, not really yet.
And Low looks like he's got a very creative 8-3.
Against somebody else. Okay, cool.
But it is suited, Grant.
Obviously playing blackjack. He's going to double down. Wants one more card.
And Paul Newey, the Brit, at the table with King 10 offsuit. And the flop is a 10-4-7. Oh, Newey grabs the lead.
Newey been smacked with the deck so far today. Flops top pair again.
Quickly checks. Ike, pre-flop aggressor, will continue.
Let's see what we're going to get here.
Surely Low can't make something out of this.
Well, he's unpredictable. Let's leave it at that for now. Looking at his chips.
He picks them up. I love the determination of this man.
Is he going to get creative again?
No, he lets it go this time, but I'm sure he was thinking about it. Over to Newey, who will call the pot around 50k now. The turn.
Well, that is the nut turn card for Isaac Haxton.
Yeah, it sure is.
He's gone from having a complete airball to having the nut flush with an open-ended straight draw. And his ace is live. It's a great card for him.
Well, Newey checks. Let's see how Haxton wants to play this one.
Well, I'd imagine he can just keep betting here. Paul's shown no aggression, no willingness to play back yet. Isaac wants to build a pot just in case he does get there on the river.
Taking his time. It's the kind of hand that can get you into a lot of trouble, though, can't it? Because you're not there yet. It looks magnificent, but you're not there yet.
Absolutely. Isaac has definitely made the right play here. It's a decent sized bet too. It's bet 35,000 into 53. It's almost 70% pot. Trying to build a pot against Paul here, just in case he does make his hand on the river, and he can come out with a big bet, try and go for maximum value.
Well, Newey with top pair will let it go. Look at that. He must have had him on something like 5-6 there and figured that he turned the straight or 2 pair or something. Haxton with a massive draw. We didn't get to see the river, but you know what? It's cash game. He'll be happy to take what's in the middle.
Absolutely. When you book a win, you got to be happy.
Well, there is the balance sheet once again. Paul Newey sits atop still with $120,000 of profit. Ike Haxton now with $50K in profit. And if you look down the bottom, 3 names in the red. And Lo Xing Fung is down about $144,000. So he's got a bit of work to do.
Interestingly, though, Paul, Lo has added $250,000 to his stack. You can do that in a cash game. That's the difference between cash and tournaments. You can top up your stack whenever you want, as long as there's no cap. This game there is no cap. It was just a minimum buy-in of 250. So Low is sitting there with about 360,000 now, which covers most players.
Phil Ivey opens his first pot and gets called by Ike Haxton, and Low's in there as well.
What a shock.
As is Newey. Family pot.
Yeah, well, Low and Newey have battled a couple of times already. Newey taking a big pot off Low earlier with top set of 7s.
It looks like Patrick Antonius and Richard Jong are in there, so a 6-way pot.
You don't get a lot of this in tournament poker, but given the stacks are so deep in cash games, a lot of people like to come along for a bit of a ride.
Oh, it is a ride. A 7-8 deuce flop. Checks around to Phil. He checks as well.
Isaac's looking pretty happy here with the king-queen.
As you can see now, the graphic is catching up and we're finding out what the players have. But if you're at home, you could try and figure out what they have on your own. That is what these guys are so talented at doing.
Isaac's going to bet his draw. We see that Richard Yong has the ace of spades. We're not sure what other card he has there, but there's 2 spades on board. So he has at least a backdoor draw. He's called. Isaac's bet. It's now 90,000 in the pot. And Phil calls as well.
Well, if Richard Yong has another spade, then Ike Haxton could be in a lot of trouble if a spade turns. And is that a spade?
That is a 3 of clubs.
It's a 3 of clubs. I apologise. I just thought I'd scare you at home. Ike Haxton with a big draw. We're waiting to find out whether Richard Yong has the nut draw. And look at this. Is that a 4 I see?
It's a very quiet table.
I'm sure it is. We still don't know what Phil Ivey has.
Yeah, and this one's firm.
Phil reluctant to show his cards to the camera at this point. But he has obviously a piece of the board there. He has called on the flop after a bet and a call. It's usually a sign of some strength. Some piece of the board.
The pot's now about $116,000, and we still have 3 players in it and 1 card to come.
We saw before that Richard Yong had the ace of spades, so obviously he's got the ace 4 of spades, which is the nut flush draw, and a gut shot draw now as well.
That could mean curtains for Ike if the river is a spade. The action now on Ike Haxton. Both players checked, and look at this.
75.
Reaching for a lot of chips.
$75,000. And Richard Yong folds. Such a big draw, but he gets out of the way.
We see Phil involved in his first hand of this table. Such experience here.
Well, Phil Ivey, we don't know what he had. Hoping we can catch a glimpse, but right now he looked straight across at Ike Haxton. There's an ace of clubs.
And he's gone all in.
And he's moved all in. So Phil Ivey with a big move on Ike Haxton here. And Ike, look at that. His body language tells you everything.
We know that Phil's got the ace of clubs and the ace of hearts.
Wow. What a hand that Phil Ivey was keeping from us. He had rockets. And Ike Haxton picked an incredible time to bluff off $75,000 on the turn. And he's gone from a very, well, stoic player to a guy who just hasn't stopped moving. Phil Ivey just looks across at him and says, I gotcha.
Well, Isaac's a 4-1 underdog here. And he has to call 150 into 416. He's not getting the right price.
But he wants to, you can tell. Well, can't you?
We all know Isaac has a lot of gamble in him. It'd be a bad call. That's for sure.
But he's assuming his king and queen are live, isn't he?
Well, he could be, yeah. I mean, Phil could have just any old overpair. He has the granddaddy of them all, unfortunately for Ike. Obviously,
I think Ike feels guilty.
And I think he knows he's been caught with a hand in the cookie jar. I mean, Isaac had a legitimate hand. He was betting a draw with some overcards. Pretty strong hand. But it's going to be very hard to call off here.
I bet you he's wishing he took the free card now. It checked to him, and he elected to bet. Sometimes you should just check, shouldn't you? I can say that. It's easy. I'm watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that was a $75,000 bet.
Well, the players looked like they showed a little bit of weakness. Isaac was happy just to take it down. If he does get called, he's got the overcards and he's got the flush draw.
Well, he folds, and Phil Ivey will take down a pot of over $400,000 with a very creative check raise on the turn with pocket aces.
The spades being dead actually is interesting there.
Doesn't matter how long you've been watching him, he continues to amaze.
So in this hand, Ivey gets dealt the rockets, pocket aces. The flop comes 3 babies with 2 spades. So now they've got 3 players to the turn, and Isaac's in position with king, queen of spades. He's got 2 overcards and a flush draw. He doesn't really have the overs because Ivey has the aces. Now he's in a tough spot and decides to bet $75,000. I'm surprised about that because it comes back to Ivey, and Ivey decides to go all in, and now he's in a tough spot. With the big draw that he has, he knows now the king or queen isn't good. He figures Ivey probably has a set and elects to fold the hand. But I'm really surprised, first of all, that Ike put himself in that spot, but very impressed with Ivey's discipline to know his man and know that he's going to bet there so he can get the check raise in.
Melbourne is famous for having amazing food, and one of my favourite places to come is Bistro Guillaume. Now, we're going to be meeting the chef himself, Guillaume Brahimi, and he's got a very special surprise in store for us. Guillaume, I'm not a very good cook. I'm hoping you can help me out here. What are we making?
Thanks, Sherry. Well, today I thought we, beautiful sunny day in Melbourne, so I thought making a very simple salad was just perfect for a light lunch. And it's a version of a salad niçoise.
Is it bad that my mouth is watering already and we haven't even put it together?
It's actually a good thing.
Tell me about Bistro Guillaume and what it's all about.
So Bistro Guillaume is a bistro we opened in a Crown Resort 3 years ago. And it's all about the food you love eating in a Paris bistro in Melbourne. It's all the thing I love eating when I'm away from home.
Well, thanks for this, chef. All that's left is a taste test.
Bon appétit.
That is delicious.
We are back with the Aussie Millions high stakes cash game, and as you can see with that last pot, Phil Ivey moves up. He is profiting around 160,000. Paul Newey around 114. Ike Haxton drops to around 60,000, and Low, well, he's down around about 150k in losses. So, but he looks quite happy. Very comfortable.
He's still got a nice pile in front of him, mate. From what I've seen so far, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing where those chips go and who they go to, more importantly.
Well, he's involved in this pot. We don't know what he's got, but he's involved. Over to Newey.
I don't even want to hazard a guess as to what Low has. I'd say 2 cards with pictures on them.
And the action around to Richard Yong. Newey has kings.
Well, Paul Newey continues to card rack this table.
Oh, Richard Young has raised. Phil Ivey wanted to get involved. He looks disappointed, but probably a really good time. And look at what Young's raised with, would you?
Richard with the very creative 5-3 of hearts. Now, Richard is known as a relatively tight player. I know in the big high-stakes tournaments he is, even though he has a lot of money. Very successful businessman.
Well, Low folds and gets out of the way. Back over to Newey now. This must be Christmas.
I wonder how Newey's going to play this. He does cover everyone at the table. He has pocket kings, the second best hand in Hold'em.
So far, he's up around $115,000.
Yes, Paul. A king and a king.
Sometimes you just got to check again. And he will smooth call. Looks like he's going to elect to try and trap or see a flop and make sure he assesses his way through. Let's see if Richard Young and his gamble here will pay off. The flop, a 10, an 8 and a jack. 2 diamonds.
Very draw-heavy flop.
Will Richard Young continue his aggression, and will Paul Newey give him the rope to hang himself?
I mean, kings is a great hand, but we know that it is a 3-bet pot, a 4-bet pot, I should say, and jack 10-8. What hands does Paul Newey beat here? He does have a pair of kings, but what hands are Richard 4-betting with that kings beat? Queens, ace, king, ace, queen. Obviously, ace, king, ace, queen have draws.
Well, Paul Newey has elected to fire quite hard and not mess around. He's decided that he didn't like the texture of that board. Fired over 50k, and Richard Young decided, okay, my creativity pre-flop ends there.
Right up until I got jammed, dog.
Well, he took a stab, that's for sure, and I don't think he's going to be too afraid to mix it up a little bit.
Well, there is Paul Newey's player profile. He's a businessman from England, and he founded Ocean Finance in 1991 and sold it for £200 million. So I guess he wasn't short of cash at the cage when he was buying in.
Yeah, it's decent couple assets he has there.
Well, he sounds like a smart man, and he's playing very well, collecting a lot of cash. At the moment, we've got Max Altergott involved in this pot with King 10 offsuit. Pot's about 9,000, but gee, these pots, they escalate very quickly in this high-stakes cash game.
Yeah, they certainly do, Paul. Always good to watch these high-stake cash games because they play so deep. The effective stacks are always deep, as opposed to a tournament where you might have guys with 10 or 12 big blinds. You never really get that in a cash game.
Folds around to Doug Polk.
There's a lot of play involved.
Looks like he wants to get involved. My understanding is during the Aussie Millions every year, this is one of the high-stakes cash games that everybody waits for. And year in, year out, everybody lines up to get it to these tables. It only costs you $250,000.
Well, unless you're Low or Paul Newey, both in for $500,000. Paul doing very well. Low not as much as Paul.
Well, Low just wants to get involved. And he's picking up a lot of big chips here.
Well, he's got 4 plaques there. And he uses 2 of them.
He makes a very interesting raise. He's quite a character, is Low. And he has ace king of diamonds. It's a very real hand.
And he takes it down. The first legitimate hand he's had. And they give him respect.
And he gets the button. The blinds in the cash game are 1,000, 2,000, and there is an additional button ante for 2,000. That just puts a little bit in the middle to juice it up. Not that you need it with these guys. Phil Ivey profiting 160, and Paul Newey around 160 as well. Down the bottom you got Haxton, who's in the red for about 60,000, and Low trying to make up ground from a very early loss. Well, if you want to play the high-stakes cash games, this is it. The Aussie Millions Poker Championships high-stakes cash game at $250,000 entry. You got to have some nerves and you got to roll with the punches. Join us next time for more high-stakes cash games at the Aussie Millions.